You forget names, not because you have a bad memory, but because your brain is doing something most people's minds are too shallow to even notice. While others hear a name, you're reading a soul. Here are 7 reasons why your brain prioritizes deep emotional data over simple labels, and why your forgetfulness is actually a sign of a high-level nervous system. Trait 1. You read faces before you hear words. You meet someone new, and before they've finished saying their name, you've already clocked the tension in their jaw, the slight asymmetry in their smile, the way their eyes don't quite match their mouth. That's where your brain went. Not to the name, to the face. To the micro-expression that flashes for a fraction of a second and tells you whether this person is comfortable, performing, or hiding something. Your brain prioritizes emotional data over verbal data. It always has. The name is a sound, the face is a signal, and your nervous system learned a long time ago that signals matter more than sounds. Trait 2. You hear what isn't said. You remember the pause before someone answered a question? The half breath they took when you mentioned a specific topic. The way their voice thinned out for just a moment and then came back. But the name? Gone before the handshake ended. Your brain doesn't just process words, it processes prosody, the musical layer of speech that carries fear, warmth, hesitation, control. You're tracking rhythm, pitch, volume shifts, and micropauses in real time. And that tracking consumes the bandwidth the name needed. People who remember names easily are often just listening to words. You're listening to the entire architecture of a person's voice. Trait 3. You walk into a gathering, and before anyone says a single word, your body has already read the room. You know who's tense, who's performing, and who's secretly counting the minutes until they can leave. Your nervous system doesn't just scan it, operates like a high-precision radar. It assigns safety levels and calculates social distance in real time. You notice the person in the corner smiling too wide, the couple who stopped talking the moment you walked in, or the one whose eye contact lasts just a half second too long. Research on highly sensitive processors shows that this environmental mapping happens long before you're consciously aware of it. By the time someone says, "Hi, your system has already spent its entire cognitive budget on the room. The name is dropped not because you weren't paying attention, but because you were paying attention to everything that actually mattered first. Trait 4. You mirror before you memorize. When someone speaks to you, your body responds before your mind catches up. You lean in slightly, your breathing synchronizes, your posture shifts to match theirs. Your face begins reflecting their emotional state. This is your mirror neuron system running at full capacity, feeling them before you're even thinking, and that's exactly why the name never lands. Your brain is simulating another person's emotional state in real time. That simulation consumes the same resources needed to store a simple label. You didn't miss the name. You were already inside their experience. Trait 5. You track the gap between words and eyes. You remember the exact moment someone's words said one thing and their eyes said another, the smile that didn't reach the corners, the confident statement paired with hands that wouldn't stay still, the "I'm fine" delivered through a clenched jaw. Your brain is built to detect incongruence, the space between what someone presents and what someone actually is. It runs constantly in the background of every interaction. Detecting incongruence means tracking 2 channels at once, verbal and nonverbal, and comparing them in real time. That's double processing load. The name arrives during that comparison and gets dropped. If you're watching this and recognizing yourself, consider subscribing. New videos every 2 days. Psychology that finally makes sense of who you are. Trait 6. You predict before they reveal. You know who's going to deflect before the question lands. You know who's going to joke instead of answer. You know who's going to leave early, who's going to overstay, who's going to shift the energy in the room. Your brain doesn't just read people, it projects them forward. It builds trajectories from microsignals, voice patterns, posture, timing. It simulates what comes next before it happens. That prediction system is expensive. It runs on the same cognitive resources needed to store new input. So while you're 3 moves ahead of the conversation, the simplest input, a name, never gets encoded. Trait 7. You carry the emotional residue, not the data. You walk away from conversations carrying how someone made you feel. The weight of their sadness, the tension of their anxiety, the warmth they tried to hide. It stays in your body for hours, sometimes days. But ask for their name and there's nothing there. Your brain stores emotional residue, not labels. It encodes atmosphere, sensation, relational impact, not identifiers, and that kind of memory has no space for names. You don't forget people, you forget labels, because in the first seconds of meeting someone, Your brain is running 7 systems simultaneously. Reading faces, tracking voice architecture, mapping the room, mirroring bodies, detecting incongruence, predicting trajectories, storing emotional residue. 7 processes, all firing at once, before the handshake is over. And here's what nobody tells you about that. It's expensive. Not morally, neurologically. Every one of those processes draws from the same finite pool of cognitive resources. Memory encoding, the act of taking a new piece of information and filing it for later retrieval, requires resources too. And by the time your brain gets to the name, the budget is gone. The people who remember names easily are doing one thing, hearing a word. Just a word, nothing else. You're doing everything else. And you've been doing it your entire life without knowing it had a name, without knowing it was a system, without knowing it was the reason the room always felt heavier to you than it did to everyone else. That's not a flaw. That's a nervous system that refuses to be shallow. You were never bad with names. You were built to read people at a depth most brains never reach. And that kind of processing leaves no space for filing labels. The name was never the point. The person always was.